Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Hack Week. I'm excited to see everyone here. Welcome to the last stream of day 2. This is the first part of a 2-part series. We're going to be diving into the Google Map API, and we're going to be building a postcard generator using images from Google Maps. Excited to see everyone here and to be back at Global Hack Week. It looks like we have a few questions that I'll answer quickly before we get started. Someone's curious if it's going to be a 1 hour or 2 hour stream. This one's going to be 2 hour stream. It's a 2-parter, so it'll be another 2-hour session later today or tomorrow, depending on what time zone you're in. And I put the check-in link in the chat earlier, so you can view that in the chat either on YouTube or Twitch, whichever platform you're on. And I'll also be displaying a short link for that in a little bit as well. But welcome, glad to see everyone. I'm curious where everyone is tuning in from for Global Hack Week today. My name's Gabriella. If you haven't met before, I'm a coach at Major League Hacking, and I'm also a software engineer. It looks like my head is blocking. I don't want to maximize. It looks like it's blocking the bit.ly short link for my slides. I'll move that around, hopefully, so I can get this set up in a way that makes a little bit more sense. But my name's Gabriella. I'm a coach here at Major League Hacking, so I'll be at Global Hack Weeks and hackathons alike. Also a software engineer. And a few fun facts about me is that I am still addicted to rug tufting. If you tuned into my last Global Hack Week stream, you heard about my latest rug tufting project, which I'm still working on, but I'm almost finished my runner rug. I'm making a long runner rug made of a bunch of like flowers connected to one another that I'm going to put next to my bed. So I'm really excited to be finishing up that. And more related to the stream today, I love collecting postcards when I travel, but typically when I do travel, I like to bring home maps instead of postcards. I have a whole wall in my apartment that's slowly growing of maps from different places I've been. I think it's a unique souvenir, and also I love when you can find like the older maps too, like whether it be antique or just like a few years old or like maybe like 10, 15 years older. I love seeing one, like how the cities have changed, but also like how the map styles have changed too. It's really interesting. Okay, and also for if you weren't able to get checked in earlier, if you go to bit.ly/GHW-maps1, that'll be the check-in link for this stream, so you can get your points with MLH for this Global Hack Week. And then I also have a short link for the slides today. That's not what I want to do. I'm trying to get my face to be formatted a little bit differently. My apologies for a slight error. Okay. I think it's just going to be over the corner. So I'll just paste that in the chat. The short link that my face is slightly covering is the short link for the slides today. It's just bit.ly/postcard-slides. I'll put that in the chat as well so everyone can see it. All right, and I'll see, looks like there's a few questions in the chat. I want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and is able to follow along well. Any prereqs needed to be installed, or will that be covered in the session? That will be covered in the session. I am also like new to getting back into Google Maps as an API, so I'll be walking you through that process and providing links if you're not able to like completely follow along with me in real time. Yes, the slides and resources will be shared both during the stream and after the fact. I just sent the link to the slides, so you're able to follow along later. I'll send that at the end of the stream as well. And I have a short link for the code where I'll push everything at the end of the stream, both for part 1 and part 2. We have someone tuning in from Nashville. That's fun. All right. Any corresponding challenges this workshop fulfills the requirements for? I am unsure, to be completely honest. I haven't had a chance to look at the challenges for this Global Hack Week. And I created my stream and like the ideas for like the stream series separately from the challenges. So it possibly, but I'm not sure. We can maybe check into that later if needed. I think everyone should have had time to check into this stream, and it looks like we have basic questions out of the way. So I'm going to dive into kind of an intro to APIs and kind of ask like the initial questions. We can kind of see like where everyone is. All right, so a little bit of an outline of what we'll be doing both in this stream and later today. The second part of this stream series is at 3 p.m. Eastern. So first, in this session, we're going to be diving into what APIs are, give a brief introduction to those, as well as the Google Map API. I'll ask a few questions to see where everyone's at, and if everyone is more of a beginner, we'll spend more time going over what an API is, and also a little bit more detail on the Google Map API, going through the documentation on that a little bit more than diving straight into the code. And then kind of the different aspects of the application we'll be building together. We have a basic web app utilizing the Google Map API, kind of like the MVP version of that. We want to integrate just an embedded map of a city along with some pictures from that city and a title. The default one that I used when I was prepping for this workshop was Paris. But then as like a second iteration of the app, we're going to take in user input. So you'll be able to put in your home city, such as Nashville, New York, Austin, Chicago, some examples. You can drop your home city in the chat as well. And we can like search those up later when we're testing out the user input. And finally, as kind of a reach, we'll add some customization. So the whole point of this is to be able to create postcards from the Google Maps API and pictures that we find on Google Maps, adding hopefully some borders and additional customization. That might be a little bit ambitious for our 2 sessions. I ran into it's more debugging than anticipated with the Google Maps API when I was prepping for this session. So hopefully we can get to customization, but we'll see how far we get and what everyone knows. All right. Okay, so a quick poll just in the chat. If you could answer the first question, have you used APIs before? First option is use them frequently, or a pro. Second option is you've used them a few times. And the third time is that this is your first time using APIs. I just want to get a quick kind of check on where everyone's at, so I know how much I need to dive into the details. Looks like we have a first timer for APIs. No, I'm assuming this means you haven't used APIs before at all. A few times. Someone used it for their code path class a few times. I know the code path curriculum is pretty good, so that's great. A few times. So it looks like most people are beginners or like have a little bit of experience, but no one is a seasoned API user. And now for my second question, have you used the Google Map API specifically before? It looks like someone is a first timer for the Google Maps API. Someone's used it a few times. Okay, a lot of first timers for the Google Maps API. Okay, cool. So now that I know where y'all are at, I think that I'll dive a little bit deeper into what APIs are as a whole, since it looks like there's a lot of beginners, and we'll spend a little bit more time going through the Google Maps API documentation as well, so that we have like a better understanding of that, and then we'll have like a more solid foundation when we get started coding. So And does anyone have any questions before we dive in? I feel like I've covered most things, but if not, feel free to drop that in the chat. I'll be pretty responsive until we get into coding, and then we'll have to be toggling back and forth. All right. So kind of as like a basic introduction to APIs, like if you didn't know like what they stand for, there's a lot of acronyms in tech. So I always find it helpful to have a breakdown of that. APIs stand for Application Programming Interfaces. And that can kind of sound like word salad if you're not super into technology or you're like just new to APIs in general. Kind of like a quick explanation of what APIs are is they're just like a set of rules that connect two different applications together so they're able to communicate. So a lot of applications you use have a lot of different functionalities that don't need to necessarily be reprogrammed every single time. Kind of think about it like you don't need to reinvent the wheel when coding. Things such as basic searching mechanisms, login capabilities, as well as the data. The data to customize an application is a very frequently used API functionality. So think about the data when you log into a website that gets your name, your email, like basic profile information. That's all. That is all usually being taken from a database that is connected to the user-facing app via an API. Also, things like login functionalities are very commonly used are very common API functionalities that are integrated into apps. You can kind of like, as like a quick other analogy, kind of think of APIs as the middleman between a very niche down app and a larger data set with like very common functionality. So things like I'm thinking of like the Belly app, which if you're unfamiliar is like a food reviewing app. Things like a very like niche down website. So things like the MLH website where you're like able to log into my MLH. We use APIs for that website and other niche down websites, whether that be for different schools, a specific use case, or just like another like specific website. Because a lot of those websites have commonalities across the board for their functionalities, whether that be just being able to like access and parse through data, search through your site, or login functionalities. And kind of like other analogies are like the waiter who is translating what the people who are eating at the restaurant are saying to the kitchen, so they're able to quickly make it and then bring the food back out to the people eating at the restaurant. Or also another analogy would be commonly understood slang or languages. So commonly understood like words or newer words and languages that you might not know when you're first learning a language, but as you become more familiar with it, you will understand what it means. All right. And also some quick facts. Some quick facts on APIs. 80% of like modern web applications rely on APIs to get your data, like I talked about earlier, getting data to display like hello, in my case, Gabriella, or hello, Jillian. I'm just thinking of random names, but getting your name when you log in, other information to be able to make payments and also to update your content in real time. So think of websites such as the Washington Post, the New York Times, I don't know, like other like news publications. They have to report on things like in very quick real time for like to follow the news cycle. And they need to rely on APIs to update their content in real time. So they don't need to, from scratch, be creating new formatting or new information for all of them. They're able to just populate the updated article or updated news story, and the API is able to take that information and put it onto the front page of the website or other rotating carousels. Yeah. APIs are used, like we said earlier, basically because you don't need to reinvent the wheel 100 times when coding. You're able to create faster and more complicated apps a lot easier and quicker. So when building an application, you don't need to build your own login mechanism from scratch. You don't need to build your own database from scratch and integrate it with your user-facing application from scratch. And also, if you want to make payments, think of small businesses who might not have the capacity or understanding on how to build out their own payment infrastructure. APIs are a great way for them to create a website very quickly and still have more control over it than they might have through a third-party platform. But they're able to get it moving more quickly because of APIs. And if you have any questions when I'm talking through APIs, follow-up questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. Looks like the only question we have so far, what language am I going to use? JavaScript. I am going to be using JavaScript because we'll be creating a web page, but the Google Maps API and Google APIs in general can be used with a variety of different languages depending on the functionality. All right, so now that I've gone through an explanation of what APIs are and what they like functionally do on the web, you might be wondering, well, like how do they actually work? Here's kind of like a basic breakdown. Like a user it's like a 4-step process for how most APIs work. Different APIs have like more complicated processes and different like sub-steps, but this is kind of like the basic gist. Step 1 is a user is going to send a request through the API's URI, which stands for Uniform Response Identifier. And this is basically the like structured way that an API takes in a request with the information and the type of request it's sending. So you can send both like a GET and a POST request, and those will like vary on how you're sending, if you're like needing to get information or update information into your API. So you send a request, and then after that, the API will go through some processing, and it's going to forward that request to a server to actually go through and see what the request asked for and what it needs to send back to the user-facing web application or just like an app in general. And then step 3, the server processes the request, executes it on, I need to log Gabriella into her Gmail account. And it's going to process that request, send back the response to the API. So it's able to actually execute that login. And then like the final step is delivery when the API returns that server response to the user on the user-facing application. So like in the case of logging in, I would just be logged into my Gmail account or logged into whatever other account. Kind of like also like a little, like as an aside, APIs, that was like a very basic explanation, can become more complex and more secure by adding in more rigid protocols. And by protocols, what I mean are just like more specific guidelines and rules on how you request information and how you update information using cookies. And if you're unfamiliar, cookies are like what remember information on the web. So if you use cookies in addition to your API, you'll be able to remember more information and won't have to send as many requests because you have more things stored on the web page itself. Enforcing HTTP protocols. This just makes the web page more secure so that your API is less vulnerable to attack. Or adding in query string parameters. Query string parameters are where you're able to, at the end of your request, you have the question mark along with some string to query the API and get information. I don't know if you've ever played with that before, but it's pretty interesting and kind of fun. All right. Any questions on what I've gone through with APIs and how they actually work? I'll give it like a minute because I know there's a little bit of a delay between the stream side and then everyone receiving the information. But if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I want to make sure that everyone understands what I've just said, the basics of APIs, and you're able to kind of talk through it and like understand what's going on. Oh, this is a good one. So why can't a user send a request to the server directly? This is because the API has like a more structured way of interpreting it from like a way that the user understands it and takes input on the website to how the server is able to access that data. Kind of like I said earlier, there is like a difference in like the language you'll use when you're gathering user information and what is done on the server directly. And it's way more complex on the server directly. So if you're doing that directly from the user site, you're going to need a lot more complex logic and able to in order to take the information that you're gathering or requesting from the user to the server directly. Not to mention when you do it that way, it's a lot less secure just because you're going directly to the data source that oftentimes contains sensitive information such as people's addresses, or names, social security numbers, or other government identifying information. If you're on like a financial website, people's addresses, phone numbers, like email accounts, all very sensitive information that you don't want the wrong people to have access to. Okay, so as far as what we're going to do next, since everyone is pretty new with the Google Maps API, I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through the Google Maps API site and walking you through how to get a key and getting set up with like the Google APIs generally. So let me pull this up. Also, like as like a general aside, Google APIs frequently have like promotions where you are able to get free months as a student. I'm pretty sure with the like GitHub Student Developer Pack, you're able to get a certain number of months for free. I'm no longer a student, so I no longer have access to that. But with the Google Maps API, you're able to submit, like in my opinion, like kind of ridiculously high number of requests. I think it's like 30,000 or something that you won't hit just with this project. So like that's like kind of as an aside, they'll typically ask you to enter some sort of payment information. Just be cognizant that like you're not going to be hitting the limits with what we're doing today. You won't be hitting the limits, but also if you just like want to follow along and not go through the whole like getting your own Google like Google Maps API, totally understand that as well. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Just remove myself from the screen. Okay. So kind of as what we're going to be doing next, that's not what I need. Give me just 1 second. Okay. And then I'm going to switch to the Google Maps API and developer platform. They have added this new feature that is a like Gemini building functionality, which I found to be somewhat helpful in like the prep process. But Not entirely, just because like for debugging purposes, and also like the exact scoping can be a little bit challenging if you're just doing it with Gemini. It answers questions all right in my experience, but I did have to go through some of the actual documentation to be able to answer questions. But it's a cool feature. And like with all like generative AI, be careful with it. Make sure you're not adding in any sensitive information. And yeah. So as far as the documentation and like the Google Maps API generally go, we'll go to the documentation. And I'm just going to pull up Maps. There's a lot of information for Maps documentation because Google Maps as an API and kind of like generally the technology is pretty broad. But kind of what we are going to focus on are just like kind of the like SDK for both like web and mobile. We'll just go to like the HTML specifically. This is for, I don't need all of this. So this is like the embedded API overview. I don't know if you have seen this on a website before, but it's a pretty common functionality where they'll add a Google map onto the web page of like a specific place. Their example is the Space Needle in Seattle, but it's a real map where you're able to like zoom in and go into like Street View and all like the other functionalities of like a like normal Google map, like when you go to the actual website. That is like the like left side of what we're going to be like envisioning for this project. It's kind of like an aside to like what I am envisioning this project to look like is like a basic web page. On the left, we're going to have an embedded map similar to this one, but just of like whatever city you selected. So if you wanted to do Seattle and you are sending postcards of Seattle to your friends, it'll have the Seattle map kind of blown up on the left side. And then on the right, it's going to say Seattle, Washington, because like that's what you've searched with a bunch of pictures like pulled from Seattle, Washington from the Google Maps API. And in addition to that, we'll add a search box so you're able to change what the actual embedded map is in addition to the like, pictures. Okay, so, and then I think to get started, I'll just start with adding the embedded API into code, and I can just kind of walk through that, and we'll go back and forth between the documentation and the actual code. I have some starter code on my end that I'll just like be pretty thorough with explaining, and then we'll build on that to get more customization and the searching features. If you haven't used code spaces before, that's what I'll be coding on. It's just an easy way to bring in GitHub repositories into the browser. Okay. Someone's asking, can you talk about how you approach documentation to ensure it's clear, complete, and provides useful code samples for other developers? I'm a big proponent of just adding a lot of comments into my code, but I usually do that after the fact when I'm finished coding, just because of like how I debug and go through the whole process. I want to make sure that like everything's working before I add in comments. And I'm explaining everything, just so I know like what every piece is doing at the end and it's working and functional. And I'll usually add like a README document for how to actually utilize the application and what the different files do with screenshots. Yeah. someone has used the embedded food map before. Oh, and it looks like we have a few questions about APIs in general. Is it safe to say that APIs are a special type of microservices, or are you completely off track? I would say that's a pretty fair statement. It depends on like the type of API, but I would say that's like pretty accurate since they're like taking a small piece of your web app or app in general, and you don't have to code it entirely from scratch. Would an API be considered different from a user interface if both allow us to interact with a system? Yes, just because an API, its whole purpose is to act kind of as a middleman between an application and another application, usually the user interface and a database, or user interface and some other type of functionality. Whereas like if the user interface was allowing you to like directly interact with a server or system, it would be different because like all the logic would be like in the interface app, if I'm understanding your question correctly. Okay, so, and then 2 for like where to go if you want to get a key to follow along with this whole process. I'm going to pull that up as well. And this key will be deleted after the stream. Just, oops. So we don't hit a maximum like process, but this is like where you'll go when you're creating your own key. Kind of as an aside, I'll like add in, I have links in my actual slides. It's a short link that I'll share in just a second. But this page is where you go to create your keys and credentials. After you've inputted whatever information like Google Maps / Google Cloud is asking for. If you have the GitHub Student Developer Pack, you can use whatever code they give you to get a certain number of time or queries for free. You'll create your first project and then create an API key. They have specific information in like when you click on the API key, where you're able to restrict it to different types of applications, whether that be a website, a mobile app. Let me see really quick if I'm able to. Yes, okay. So I'm able to pull it up without sharing the key directly. So I'm going to show you kind of what this looks like after you're setting up the key. I'll give y'all a little bit of time to do that. I can't walk through the entire process step by step because some of it is like asking for entering like either a code or like card if you get past like 30,000 queries. But this is kind of like the basics of like how you can restrict it to make it more secure. When I'm testing it, I don't do any restrictions just because it's not going live. The key isn't anywhere online. So there's no risk of like the maximum amount being hit. But if you were like for this application, if we were going to put it live, I would set it to websites, and then you would add in what specific website that you would be sending it from. You would be accepting API requests from. So in this case, like I would just like add in my URL. If you want to do this when you're doing local testing, you can add in your local host as well. I just leave it as none just to make sure that like it just makes like a little bit easier. You don't run into extra bugs. I did unfortunately run into that when I was preparing for this stream. Other application restrictions you can do for iOS, Android apps, as well as IP addresses. And then for the actual API restrictions, you can restrict it to specific APIs. So in our case, we would do the Places API, but specifically the new Places API. both still active because the old Places API has certain functionalities that the new one does not. But for our app, I'm like 99% sure that we're only going to be using functionalities for the new Places API. And then also they have the Maps API. We'll be using the Maps embedded API. I'll also add in the JavaScript API and the static API. I don't think I'll be using the static API, but just generally, so we know we have all of it. If you run into issues later, like where it's specifically like asking about adding in different APIs that are not being allowed, I'll typically just go to don't restrict key if I'm doing local testing, just to quickly get rid of those bugs. But these are good to have generally when you're deploying things, because you want to make sure that you're not having your application being vulnerable to either like people like creating injection requests to get information from your application if it has like more sensitive information than Google Maps. But secondly, if you have your information, payment or like address attached to an API key, and someone, it's not restricted to specific APIs, they could potentially use your API key for any number of these APIs, which are all very useful, but can be expensive if you run like thousands of requests on them. So it's good to make sure you have restrictions enabled on those when setting it up. And I will send this link in the chat as well, where you can get set up with your own GitHub keys. So that is just going to be at bit.ly/postcard keys. I'll put that up on the screen for a little bit. It's the second bit.ly link, bit.ly/postcard keys. And I'll give everyone like a minute or two for you to get set up. Great question from Sean right here. So for which APIs you need to enable, I'll switch back to the screen. The four that we definitely need to enable are the Places API, but specifically the new version, the Maps embedded API, the Maps JavaScript API, and the Maps static API. I set the application restrictions to none. If you would like to add websites with localhost, you're welcome to, but that can lead to some frustrating errors later. And if you're doing local testing, then you should be good. All right. I'm hoping that was enough time. So I'm going to switch my screen over to my code space. Okay. Oh, this is not the right screen. Okay. So this is the right screen right here. Okay. So If you are unfamiliar, this is code spaces. It's a way to just like easily run applications or like easily run your coding in the browser for easy sharing. I'm gonna do a quick pop up, and we can get rid of Copilot for the second. This is like a bit of an overview for what we're aiming to do. I also have some resources, and I am going to, let's see. I'm gonna delete these notes to self, and then we can move on. Oh, for the person asking, it's asking for payment. It does ask you to input information for payment. If you stay under 30,000 requests for Google Maps requests on the API, you should be good. But if you don't want to submit payment, you can just follow along with what we're doing. Give me 1 second. Does it automatically charge you if you go over the request limit? I think so, but I have not gone over the request limit before, so I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so as kind of like basic, where we're going to get started, I'm going to go over to index.html. For from the get-go, I'm just going to start with the embedded Google Maps for this website, and then we can kind of scope it out from there. And then on here, we have our to-do. So we already went over what APIs are. I'm trying to get the okay, here we go. I'll check. We already went over what APIs are. We went over the Google Maps API generally. So our first action item is to connect to Google Maps API to embed a basic map in the site for a specific sample city. We'll need some just basic HTML tags. I'm gonna add those in really quickly. If you have questions, again, feel free to drop those in the chat. Okay, and then we'll have our basic head and body tags. We'll be linking to our CSS file, which I already have the basic structure of everything in this repository. It was up on the screen earlier. I'll drop that in the chat again. So you are able to follow along slightly easier. It's just bit.ly/postcard repo. So that has the just emptied out index.html, JavaScript file, CSS file. But I'll be pushing everything at the end of the session as well. Yeah, so we have empty JavaScript, empty CSS, back to kind of creating this head. That's not the right thing I meant to paste. I need to bring in 2 items. So we're going to bring in just a link to our CSS file. And then I'm also going to link to the Google Fonts API, just like the material and icons, like that we'll just be using to make our website look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Someone's asking, how do you open up the code space? You go to, it's just github.com/codespaces. You can run this locally as well. I just run it in Codespaces because it's easier to share in the browser and on stream. This may be a GitHub Pro feature. I'm not 100% sure. So make sure you read whatever the pop-ups say for that. But you can also run this locally as well if you just clone the repository and bring it down locally. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually be bringing in our embedded map. So I'm going to be kind of toggling between both the documentation and my code so you're able to see it in real time. Okay, so as like kind of the basic embed, we're just going to bring over this that we found on the embedded page of the Google Maps API, and then we'll do some additional formatting and add our city, but we just want to get this started for right now. So this I just copied over from the Google Maps API, and as you can see here, it's like a basic iframe. A lot of times, like when you're developing websites, I don't know how frequently y'all have been like using web development. I have been developing using basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Iframes are pretty common. You're able to embed things easily, copy paste whatever over here. As you can see, usually it's just like some basic information. So it's all there, but here you can see that it's coming from the API, but you need your specific API key. So I'll paste in my API key and then we'll see if this is working. All right. And then we're going to start running this. So I want to have a preview of our index.html page. Okay. Okay, sorry, I just have a quick moment where I was forgetting how to preview in code spaces, but let's see if this does the trick. Okay. Okay, it is working. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up in the same. There's a side by side. Okay, I'm just gonna like toggle between the two. My apologies that it's not like just side by side. But the embed is working. So I'll pull it up to the side. Or maybe this is probably a better idea. My apologies for the slight delay with screen sharing. Okay. Okay, here we are. This will be easier. Okay, so here is, yes, okay. This should be much easier. And then you are able to see, yes, okay. Awesome. So as you can see, our embed is working. So I added in my Google Map API key into that iframe, and now we're able to see it on the left. And also, I want to test it out with a few different locations just to make sure that like, the iframe works with like different locations. So we'll do. Let's do Paris, France, and see how it updates. Okay, refresh. As you can see here, it's the city of Paris. And now let's change it to New York, New York. I'm not sure how it wants it formatted, but this should be good enough. Oh, it's the New York hotel in Vegas. I think this is Vegas, yeah. So let's see if we do spaces, if that updates it. Yes, New York City. And we can try, I know someone was from Nashville earlier in the chat, so I'll add in Nashville as a last little test. Nashville, Tennessee, like 95% sure it's spelled correctly. Yes, and here we have Nashville. I'll do some other random cities that people said they were from in the chat. Scroll back a little bit. Also, you can drop them. Okay. Nairobi in Kenya. Okay. I think I'm spelling that right. I'm like going, telling between. Yep. Okay. And then we can refresh. Here we have Nairobi. And then Surat, India. I think I'm saying that correctly. All right. So it's working. Kind of like the basics of how our application is going to work is that when we are, my screen is frozen. Give me just 1 minute. I'm going to see if this fixes it. Yes. Okay. My screen was frozen for a little bit, but I think it's working now. Is my video and audio like live again now? I'm not frozen for y'all. I'll give it a minute for the delay. Okay. All good now. And if I ever run into issues again with like audio or just like lagging in general, drop that in the chat. So we are actually seeing I'm making sure to fix that. Okay, so now that we have we know that our embedded map is working, the next piece is that we want to basically create two separate columns. This is like a pretty simple HTML formatting thing. If you have used HTML previously, you'll know about I just like creating like different divs and using Flexbox to like format them correctly. But we're going to create two separate divs. Do div ID, just do left side. And we'll do div ID equal to right side. And on the right side, I'm going to add a heading column that's just going to be the title of like the city that we're displaying. So in this case, we just put Surat and then refresh this page. As you can see, we're getting the title, but no, I probably should do space because that's how it wants it for Google Maps, but not how it's commonly formatted. We do need to add some styling onto our CSS page now, so it doesn't have this, in my opinion, quite ugly font. And also we need to have the left and right divs actually be doing something. So now it's time to go to our CSS file, which is completely empty. Exciting. So we have some basic information that I'm just going to copy over for our HTML body. That's going to change the font. So it's a little bit better. It's not like the height of graphic design, but it's going to be a little bit more appealing. That already looks a lot better. And also, I think we're going to add a little bit of padding and add in the Flexbox. So yeah, if you have questions, drop them in the chat, but that's what I'll be doing. So for our left side, we're going to add in, let me make sure I got the correct ID. Yes, left side. We're going to be adding in, making sure the width is 50% because we want to split the left and right side into their two respective parts of the screen. And we're creating the display to be flex, which is just kind of like instantiating our Flexbox. And the direction is going to be a column, so we know like the specific box that we're housing with like the left side ID is going to be a column versus rows, because we want to have the left side with the map and the right side with basically everything else. We'll have right side with similar but not identical code. So we're going to have width also be equal to 50%. And we're going to add in some padding. All right, let's see how it's looking. I probably need to add in some more containers. Yes, okay, so we can see here, I added the background color to be a like slightly different color gray, just so that like our like text with like the image library will be slightly different. I'm not showing the actual page. Here it is. And we'll have different information with like our search box, and then like different images and like in the image library. But we don't have our flex box quite correctly set up yet. Yes. Okay. Oh, I see. This makes sense. Okay. So for Flexbox, I forgot that you need to have everything inside of one giant container. So div ID will be equal to container. And this is going to house basically everything, because I think Copilot autocomplete is on. We're getting the end of the div right here. So let me indent this so it's a little bit easier to read. So all of this, there we go. Okay. And then this we indent to be in line. And then similarly to be in line because they're the same level. This isn't necessary for like the actual code to run, but it makes it a lot easier to actually be able to like read and understand the code. And then we're going to add in some basic text for our container. This is just like some more basic boilerplate for our Flexbox. I think it's autosave in code spaces. Here we are. So as you can see, we have the title of our location and our actual map. And the right side is this fun dark gray color. So there'll be like a more of a visual contrast between the actual images and the map. All right, I am going to take a quick like 2-minute break to get some water, just because since I've been speaking for a while, getting thirsty. So drink a glass of water yourself, go to the restroom. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. All right. Right, I'm back. I have some more water. You can't see it because of the green screen. But I hope you were able to grab a glass of water too. Yeah, okay, let's get back to the code. Also, as always, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I know it's like just some basic HTML and an iframe at this point, but I know that getting set up with the Google API can sometimes take a little bit of time. So I want to make sure that everyone's able to follow along in real time, if possible. Okay, so let's go back to our README with the instructions. So we have been able to connect to the Google Maps API successfully with our API and embed a basic map into the sample city. So the next thing that we're going to do now that we have this and we've kind of created the boxes for our application is we're going to add in some more divs to hold a search box for when we want to ultimately search for new locations. If we want to go to Detroit, Michigan, or Kisumu, Kenya, then we could add in that and it would change both the title and the actual location in the pictures we're about to add. So, all right. Next thing that I'm going to add right above this is just going to be a text box to hold that information. And then I'll make a div with an ID of picture gallery. Now, I'm also forgetting the exact syntax for the user input in HTML, which is a little embarrassing because I used to be so into web development, but sometimes that happens. So I am going to pull it up on W3 Schools real quick. It knows that I only use Python now. It's just basic input, but I need to see like what specific attributes we'll need. Okay. So probably what we're going to want to do is have like a basic form action that calls a refresh of our API iframe with the updated city. So, okay. I just want to see this kind of in action before we put it into our code itself. I'm just going to put city name. Okay. This is lagging slightly for me. I don't know if it is for you. I'm assuming it is for you because I'm not able to get back to the stream itself. Apologies if my screen is frozen. I'm trying to fix it. Just a background, we have the rainbow swirly of death from Mac. I don't know if any of you are Mac users. Okay, now I'm back. Okay, cool. I think we're all good now. I think the lag was just on my end. Yes, okay. And this is moving much quicker. Okay. We'll do something fun. Oh, this needs to actually be a submit because Bon Voyage is not this input type. Okay, cool. And then for the form action, we will add in that later. Okay, but I'm going to add this onto our actual page above our title. Okay. I want to put this all on the same line. So I'm going to put div ID search box. Just so that we're able to like have that all be together. And I'll need to add some CSS styling. All right, so we will have our ID here. There's going to be search box. Be equal to flex. And then we're going to have, let's see. This is city name. And then this ID will just be submit button. We'll do this underscore so it's the same. And then flex direction is going to be search box, not that's a dash. This needs to be underscore. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to spend time looking at the flex box all that in depth right now. We can work on the formatting later. I want to get more of the functionality down before I get too sidetracked. But for the next section, we want to add in the actual images we're getting from the location. So that means we need to add in we need to add in another API call into our picture gallery. So this is going to be a script we are pulling from our Google Maps API. Let's see. And then we're gonna refresh this page. Make sure that we're doing everything correctly. All right. Okay. So we need to add in some JavaScript logic. Give me just a moment. Okay. I want to make sure that this is the correct version of this. Yes. Okay. That should all be good to go. I think we just need to add in, we need to add in two things. Okay, so up here in the head, we're going to add in a link to our actual JavaScript, and then we are going to actually go ahead and add some logic into our JavaScript file, so we're able to see all of our wonderful pictures from our location. What's the script? You can't see properly. I have not pulled up the JavaScript file yet. That's just like what we're going to be doing next. As you can see here on line 4, I'm linking to the JavaScript file in the repository that I linked to y'all. It's just an empty JavaScript file right now. And I'm going to add in a few functions so we're able to actually pull in those pictures. All right. So the first thing we need to do is add in basically a bunch of constants so that we are properly importing different things from the Google Map API into our JavaScript file. So here we have let map, let markers, let the information window, advanced marker element, and then we're also getting a place for our error container, our gallery, our heading, and our summary, which will be used later. So I'm going to comment this out. And then I'm going to double check that the IDs of these different elements are the same. This I'm going to change to have an ID of heading. That was not updated. And then our gallery is picture gallery. I want it to be called picture gallery. So I'll just update the code here. And then what is the last one? Error container. We need to add an error container. This is in the case that we're not able to get information from the Google Maps API. We want to be able to have a place for that error to go that basically says, oh, we're not able to access the Google Maps API or your key is invalid. So I'm going to add that right below the search box. We'll just have a div ID, and we're going to set that equal to our error container. And then I think I'm going to want to reference my notes and see how I did it in the first iteration. Yeah, so we'll just do a basic, yeah, okay. We'll set this equal to hidden as well, so that our error container isn't normally popping up if there aren't any errors in our file. And that means we also need to add hidden styling to the CSS. This is a pretty easy addition right here. Okay, so now that we have all of these constants set up, we need to actually start making some functions so we can start getting the pictures. So the first thing that we want to be able to do is like access the different items, which we'll do with this. Right here. So this is heading and text content. For heading and summary, summary will comment out for right now. And we also, I think, want to have some error handling before we get started, just in the case that like you're not able to see information on the web page, you're getting like instructions on how to debug it. So how we're going to do that is by adding in a display error to actually go ahead and display the error. So in that, what we're going to basically be taking in is the actual message we want to display, as well as which specific error we have, so that like it makes debugging easier. Because sometimes you'll get an error that is like your Google API is just invalid, but other times it'll be something that's a little bit more like complex. So we're just going to add to the console where they have, if you've done web development before, you'll know that in the console, you're able to access a bunch of different errors and information, whether that be warnings or errors. This will just like display that. And then we're also going to add our message to the user, kind of like set that as a variable. User message will be equal to our message. So we're actually setting that as a variable. And then we're going to kind of translate our error message into a string that's actually able to be able to read. We're just going to handle a few common ones before we get into going through and actually seeing our pictures. So I'm going to bring over this, and we'll also have our error message. Error message is going to be equal to we're gonna use the toString method. All right. And then here are some of the common errors that we will receive. Well, the billing not enabled map error, API not activated map error. And we will also have or not also have, it's common for us to receive these errors. And then for not allowed. Okay, I think these are all the common ones. Yes, okay. So this error is basically when you haven't added your billing information into Google Maps, so they're not able to bill you when you're using your API token. This one is when your API is not activated for the Google Maps API. If you remember earlier when we selected places, maps, and a few other things, there was 4 things we selected. This is when your specific API key does not have the Google Maps API selected as enabled. Invalid key map error. This is when your API key is not valid. Maybe you deleted it, maybe it expired, maybe your address is, I don't know, not real. You put in a fake address and it detected that. I don't know if it actually does that. I'm just thinking of other scenarios. And then refer not allowed map error. This is going to come when we are getting traffic to our site from an HTTP referrer that is blocked from the request. As you saw when we went through and created our API key earlier, you're able to restrict the specific kinds of like websites and like applications the API request is going through. This is if you're using one that you restricted against. So let's actually create those error handling messages now that you know what they are. Okay, so if our error message includes, let me make sure I get the correct syntax. I am usually a Python gal, so sometimes I will have the syntax reflective of Python. Initially, I'll need to adjust it. This needs to be in parentheses, though, I know that. Okay, that seems to be going to plan. Okay, so if we are receiving billing not enabled or API not activated, I think should be in the same one. That'll be, I think, kind of like an easy 2 to group together. This is not correct. And then this is yelling at me because it wants this, I believe. Okay. Why is it upset about this? Expression expected. Oh, because I don't have anything in here. That would make sense. So we're going to change the like user message to be equal to this. Error billing is not enabled on your Google API account. Please enable to fix. We'll add a little bit more detail. This is the error message I had before that just came from the Google documentation. So this is where you need to go to fix it. Okay, and it's still upset about this. I think it's because I put it like this. Oh, I see, I see. I closed this too early. There we go. Okay. So we have our first error message. Is this making sense to everyone so far? I'm gonna assume no questions means yes. We're gonna add in our second error message. So else if error message includes we're going to add in just a basic error message. It says error, you entered an invalid API key. Please double check your key in the code. Okay. This needs another parenthesis. Okay. And then last, we're going to have this is the basic error that we got from the Google Maps documentation when I was prepping for this. Okay, your API key has restrictions that are blocking your request. You can remove them or add your domain to the list in the Google Cloud Console. So I want to go over here, refresh the page. And just to kind of like test that these are working, I'm going to enter just like an X instead of my actual key to make sure that these error handling messages are working. So I'm going to go back over here and we're going to just put in X -Y and then see what happens. Okay, we did not add in logic to actually add this onto the screen, so that's not going to actually do anything. That's on me. So, because we're not calling the function, so let's add a little bit more logic, and hopefully we can get the error handling done in this part. Okay, so let's add this into the function itself. Because this is where we're going to actually add the error we're getting in addition to that. So let's go back here. This is okay, our error container. I want to make sure I'm getting the right ID. So I'm going to go to our error container dot text content. And I'm realizing this needs to be an underscore for camel case. And then there. Okay. We're going to reassign this so the error message is actually showing up. User message. So this is the message that we're reassigning up here. And then we're also going to say check the browser's dev console for more context on the existing error, preventing the successful run of your page. Okay, And then we're also going to go to our styling, because I don't know if you remember this from earlier, but our error container here we set to be hidden. Yeah, so the class is set to hidden. We need to remove that so that the div actually shows up. So we're going to click on class list, and we're going to remove, and we're going to remove hidden. Okay, that's what we called it, yeah. Okay, so I think that should be working properly. Let's see. I'm not calling the function. I need to call a function. Oh, we have someone is testing it locally. Just link the script file correctly. Did I link it incorrectly earlier? Oh, yeah. That's my bad. Okay, cool. So let me update the README really quick. So, okay. We have like half of this done. So this is what we'll be working on in the next part of the stream. So if you joined later than when we first started, we're going to have a second part of the stream. It's going to be happening at 3 p.m. Eastern today, but kind of like as an overview of what we went over today. So far, we did like a brief review of what APIs are, what Google Map APIs are, connected to our Google Maps API. We got a city, and we're about halfway through getting actual pictures. We just need to finish the JavaScript and add in a little bit of logic onto the actual screen to get like the different boxes together for those pictures. And then kind of like the last piece of getting our postcards together once we get those images from the Google Maps API is we're going to display them as individual items that you can download. Also, as like a side note, for these postcards, they're for personal use only. That's how this project is within the terms of and conditions of the Google Maps API. That's a big thing is you can't use the images for commercial use because they are on occasion copyrighted and not for like free use for you to sell because you did not take them. I'd say 99% of the time. Any questions so far? I'm going to commit the code we've gone through so far today after the stream is over. And be sure to join me in about 10 to 15 minutes for the Today in Global Hack Week. For day 3, I'll be going over what to expect besides the second part of the stream for day 3 in Global Hack Week. And we'll also have another Global Hack Week stream after that. But before we say goodbye for a little bit, I want to pull up this. So if you have any questions for what we've gone over thus far, feel free to drop them in the chat. But also I wanted to drop the registration link one more time in addition to the feedback link. MLH or Major League Hacking is always looking to improve in whatever way possible. So if you have any feedback, feel free to drop that in the feedback form, and also make sure to register your attendance for coming to the stream today. Also, as an aside, if you want to look at the code after the fact, if you weren't able to follow along with it in real time, I know sometimes you can get off track. You can go to this bit.ly link to access the repository. All right, I'll give y'all about a minute or two to ask any more questions, and then I'll see y'all for part 2 later today. Looks like we have a question. The part 2 is at 3 p.m. Eastern today. If you're not in the US or that's just like doesn't work for you, it will be recorded and you'll be able to access the stream a few hours after the fact on our YouTube and Twitch channels as well. And be sure to join me in like 10 to 15 minutes for Today in Global Hack Week for day 3. It'll be 1:30 in the morning. That's quite late. I would respect the dedication if you want to join, but also completely understand if you want to just watch it after the fact on the recording. All right. I will see y'all later today. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'm excited to finish building out the postcards, but I'll see you in like 10 minutes at Today in Global Hack Week. All right. Thanks for tuning in.